Splendid. Okie dokie. Right, what I'm going to show you is I'm going to access the service, and I'm accessing this from a PC, but you could be accessing this through a Mac, you could be accessing it through a tablet, a smartphone, a smart TV, even on an Xbox in between, playing whatever you play on an Xbox sort of thing. As long as you get access to a browser, you can do what I'm going to go into. And I'm using this from a user's perspective, so this will literally be as you can use the service. Now, I want to log in as Bart user, anikixie.com, and secure password. When I log in, I've then got this portal view to what I'm seeing. So, here we go. These are a list of all the reports that I've got available to me on the left-hand side. I'm going to close this to give us a little bit more space. And I'm going to start off with the basic and work my way up through these different report types. So the first report I'm going to look at is what we refer to as the historic call list. What this is showing us is each and every single call in or out of your business today. And we can, for example, see here, this is a call that was answered, that call was abandoned, and this call was advanced. So advanced basically means it hit, in this instance, Jake Wilkinson, rang for 25 seconds, and then went on to extension 121, and that call came in on the sales line, the Asian sales line. And we can see the date, the time, the segment number, and the segment number refers to a feature that we describe as cradle-to-grave call reporting. And in simple terms, what that means is if a call comes in and is bounced 8 times as it goes from this extension or this department to others and so forth, we can track each of those. This is the caller ID, and this is the DID where the person called. The extension number, extension name, and we've got, for example, here the ring time, talk time, whether answered yes or no, and these are all external inbound calls. Again, we do outbound calls as well, but inbound calls from this sort of sample data tend to be a bit more interesting. Now, that's the most simple report that we have. Before I go on to the other reports, though, I'm going to show you the generic controls that are applicable to all the reports. The first one is the time frame. So at the moment we're looking at today. We can see this is a report that's running purely over today, but I can select yesterday, this week, last week on any of these reports. I can even select real time. Now this particular report isn't that interesting in real time. I will show you some of the others that are as we go through. But the important thing is from your perspective, it's very easy for you to be able to select the time frame that you want to run that report over. Here, this is where you can zoom in or out, depending upon the resolution of the screen that you're looking at. So, for example, I'm looking at this on a PC. Can you all see those numbers and digits clearly from where you're logged in at? Yeah, good.
Yeah,
and again, sometimes depending, you can, good. Sometimes, depending upon the screen that you're looking at, you might want to change the resolution and so forth. But that's, we'll leave that at 100% for yourselves. Right, now, this is where you can apply an instant filter. So you could say, hey, look, I'm only interested in looking at Ethan, Dylan and Isabella's calls, or you could say, look, I want to look at everyone's calls apart from Liam, Jake, and Amelia. The right mouse button to exclude, left mouse button to include. Very simple, quick and easy filtering. This is where you can export to CSV, so you can say, hey, look, I want to slice, dice, manipulate, bring that into a spreadsheet, and then further analyze the data. You press that button, you'd create that. And you've got 3 different types of print, PDF, RTF, or HTML. And the next button here is where you can customize or modify, or you can make that report do whatever you want it to do in your particular situation. So at the moment, we're looking at the historic call list. We're going to go through these other reports as we go through. And I could then call this where I want to. I can call this Bart's historic call list. Modify that, change that, and I've got another canned template that displays what I want it to see. I can then change the view, I can change the date, the time, and then I can apply a filter. Now, filtering is where we can mine, we can drill down and be specific about the sort of information that we want to see. So, for example, I'm looking at the Acme Travel Company's data here. And telephone number filtering, I'll ask you guys a question here. I'll ask you, the classic situation for this is, tell me if you've never, ever, ever had someone call in and say, I called in the other day and you took 3 minutes to answer the call. I was transferred 15 times. I was put on hold for half an hour. I was promised this, I was told that. Tell me if you've never, ever had that call.
So if yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to be able to look that up.
Okay. So again, any company that's got customers and so forth has that call occasionally. Well, let me show you. If that happens again, if you run this service, this is what you can do. Because you can say, Mr. Jones, I'm really, really sorry. I've no idea what happened. But let me find out. Let me get some details and I'll give you a call back. What you can then do is put Mr. Jones' telephone number in here, press OK, and then it will give you a list of all the calls to or from Mr. Jones. At that point, you can say, hey, Mr. Jones, I'm really, really sorry. I've got a free mouse mat in the post to you to apologise for the inconvenience that you had. And I can see you called in on Thursday. You're answered by Bart after 25 seconds, and we aim to answer calls within 12 seconds. So, that's why you've got a free mouse mat in the post. And I can see Bart was speaking for 3.5 minutes. He then transferred you to Josh. Josh was speaking to you you get the ID, you'd see all that information. Right, next we've got, again, we can specify to include or exclude particular extensions or queues or groups. And if you're running ACD agents, if they're logging in and out of group and so forth, you can then specify to include or exclude those. And specify the direction, i.e. calls either to or from these extensions, agents or telephone numbers. Then you can say, hey, look, I'm only interested in looking at inbound, outbound, external inbound, outbound, trunk to trunk. So trunk to trunk is where a call might come in and you might then transfer it to someone else in the field on their cell phone or something like that. We can track those. And we can even track internal calls. So you could have a situation whereby, you can see all the calls from, one individual to another individual internally within the Momentum service. Answer type, you can say, hey, look, only show me calls that were not answered, abandoned, advanced, or overflowed. We'll come back here a little bit later on because it's something quite valuable this shows you. And you can have only show me calls that came in on Ellie's line, or on that DDI, or on that DID, whatever. Account codes, you can use this for call disposition reporting. So, for example, you might say, hey, look, we know we get 500 calls a day into this department. What we don't know is how many of them are sales calls, how many are complaints, how many of them are how do we get to your warehouse. And if we found out that a lot of people were calling up to find out how to get to a warehouse, it tells us we'd need to do a better job on our website on location, or maybe in the auto attendant. One of the options is if you want to find out how to get to a warehouse, press 5, as an example. And I'll give you an example of how we do that later. Other filtering. This is, I describe this as the black belt of Kixi screen. This is where you really want to drill down and find out, I want all calls that came in here, went there, or be able to filter based upon talk time, held time, etc. Was there a question there?
No, not from us.
No? Okay, sorry. Fields is where you can customize the report. So this is where you say, hey, look, these are all the fields that you get as standard on that report, but I can add, remove, change, modify. You can make that report as simple or as comprehensive as you want it to be. Scheduling, good example. People say to me, not the information, a lot of data there, but rather than me go in and look at that report daily, weekly, monthly, whatever, I would like that report automatically sent to me via email on these days of the week, at this time of day, in this format, and it will automatically push those reports to you via email. Right, now let me give you another example. So we said Mr. Jones called in, not very happy. You can see a situation where you can call him back and find out exactly what happened. You've got a situation there where someone says, I want the information, but I don't want to have to check it out. I want it sent to me. There you go. Another situation where someone says, tell you what, a lot of information there, a lot of data, but what would be valuable to this business, if you can show us all the calls that we were unable to answer when we got really busy, then hang on a minute, you've got something there that potentially is very, very valuable. Well, the easiest way to do that would be go back to filter, select under answer type, not answered, and run a return report. This is what that would look like. So now we've got a list of all the calls in that were not answered. So we can see abandoned, on that call went elsewhere. And we can see the date, the time, the caller ID, the DID, where they rang, all that information. And that's great. It means potentially we could do something with these telephone numbers but it's only part of the picture. There's a lot of noise there. What you can't see is if this person abandoned on calling in, did they subsequently call back? Did you call them back? For that, we have the next report, which we refer to as the unreturned lost calls list. And what this report does is it automates and filters all the information that you need to see automatically for you. So this is running in real time, which basically means is as I'm describing this, this might well update and change itself as I'm describing it. But let me show you what it's showing you. So if someone calls in to your business but does not successfully get answered, it will detail the caller, the date, the time, the segment, the caller ID, where they rang, who they rang, and it will detail it in red. But if that caller ID subsequently calls back and is successfully answered, or you apologetically giving them an extra 5% discount or whatever, and they answer it, it will turn that call green. And in fact, that's what happened to that call there. So at the end of the day, you want nothing in the red. The idea is that any red call is a potentially outstanding lost revenue call. The green ones have been dealt with. So you only need to deal with the ones that are still red. The ones that are green have already been dealt with. What you can also do from here is left mouse button click and use this to call the person back. So if a telephone call can potentially represent lost business, this is a great way of recovering that, but only spending the time on doing that you need to. That's the unreturned lost call list. The next report I'll show you is the extension list. Now we're looking at this in real time, so we can see, for example, all the extensions. We can see who's busy on a call, so we can see Erin, Tyler, Ellie are currently on a call. And this is an example report. We can see, for example, Liam Dixon has currently got a call ringing. And some people say, actually, I'd like that report sent to me at the end of the week, day, whatever. So I can see who has or hasn't been making, taking calls and what sort of time it's spent on the calls. And that's what it would look like there. But if we go back to real time, there's a bit more flexibility with this. So what we can do here is we can, for example, see that Lewis has got a call ringing, Erin's got a call in progress. What we can also do is set up alarms to help with coaching. So, for example, I can say, look, these are the fields that you've got on display at the moment, but you can go in, add, remove, change, modify, have that report as comprehensive or as simple as you want it to be. And then what you can do is set up alarms and say, hey, look, if the ring time, for example, on any of these calls is higher than, in instance, 5 seconds, I want to know about it. Likewise, if any of the calls are in conversation for, in this instance, longer than 2 minutes, I'd like to know about it. Now, 2 minutes in your business is probably a bit too short. For this demo, you'll see what it looks like. But in your business, there will be a period that you say, look, if you've not managed to get to this stage of a call at this time, then you need to move on to the next call, or you need to escalate, or you need to do something else, or whatever that is. Whatever that is when you're coaching staff, that's what you'd set out in that situation there. Now, let me show you what it looks like.
Okay.
So here we go. We've got, for example, Holly Jason has got a call that's been ringing for longer than, well, she's now answered it. But if this one here, Callum McQueen, that goes over 5 seconds, that'll start flashing. Now, what we've also got the ability to do on the Momentum service, we can lift mouse button, click that, and I can send that call somewhere else. Or I can pick it up. So not only can I be told when something's not working the way that I want it to be working, you can do something about it. Likewise, we can see Tyler Sword, who's been in conversation for over 2 minutes here. Now, what I can do as a supervisor, I can potentially left mouse button click, and I can monitor and or intrude on that call if required, subject to the licenses. So it's a case of this is how we want things ideally to be, but if they're not working that way, then show me, and then I can do something about it in real time now. Another example of how this screen can be used, people will say, actually, I want this screen in display so that people can see how well or not they are performing today. And I can have the person that's taken the most calls at the top of the list and the person with the fewest at the bottom. So that I can, have a race, and the person that takes the most or does the most or whatever at the end of the day gets a beer voucher, free chocolate bar, whatever. That sort of thing I can do now. Now, what I can also do from here is use this to potentially call the person. I can transfer calls, put calls on hold, etc., etc., etc. there. That's the extension list. Another way of displaying that is what we describe as the extension BLF. Now, I could have that there, and I can use this as a separate, I can have a display that just shows me this. And I could use that, let's say, on the side of the screen. So I can park that literally there and carry on my other way. Let me give an example where I could say, hey, look, someone calls in and says, look, can I speak to Lewis Stone? Now, I can see Lewis is on a call at the moment. What I can also do, though, is put my mouse over Lewis, and I can see that he's been on the phone at the moment for 14 seconds, but his average talk time is 1 minute 17. Now, what that enables me to do is say, do you know what, Lewis is actually on the phone at the moment, but I suspect he's probably going to come free in about a minute's time. If you'd like to go on hold, I'll come back to you in about a minute's time and see if he's available. Correspondingly, though, if Lewis's average talk time is 25 minutes and he's only been on the phone for a minute, you're better off saying that, you know what, Lewis is on the phone at the moment. Best thing I can do, I can see he's probably going to be a little bit longer. Let me take a message and I'll make sure he gets it and gives you a call back, as an example. Calls by DDI, or DID. This is now showing you the traffic on each of those different DIDs coming into your business. And this is great for showing you what's happening potentially in real time, or what marketeers love this report in particular. So, for example, you could say, I want this running over today, this week, or this month period. And the classic use for this is where you might, for example, have an advert or some sort of campaign that you're putting out, and you might have that campaign in 4 or 5 different locations. You might have an advert on the web page. You might have one on a billboard. You might have one on a local magazine, another national magazine. What Momentum can provide you with is a separate, what we call NGN, separate 1-800 type number per advert location. They can all still come back and ring the same department here, but what you can use this for is then measure the responses on each of those different advert locations. And you can see, which ones are generating traffic, which ones to renew the following month, and which ones to cancel. That's what this can be particularly useful for. Next report, calls by half-hour interval. So we're now looking at each half-hour slot in the day. Classic question is literally, what days, what hours do your customers call you on? And most people will say something like, well, we're here between 9 and 5 Monday to Friday. That's when our customers call us. Now, just because you're there Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, doesn't mean that's when your customers call you, because this will show you, for example, if your customers are calling you between 8 and 9 and after 5 o'clock. Likewise, if I was to ask you and say, when's your busy period? And you might say, hey, look, our busiest period is between 10 and 11, most days of the week. A lot of people would know that. What they don't know is how much busier. Are they 5, 10, 50, 100, 200% busier on those hours than other hours? And it's great for staffing this. So then you can see, well, actually, we've got a 50% increase in traffic in that busy hour. That's what we need staff to. So that's per half hour. Next one is by day. So again, what's the busiest day of the week? Well, it might be whatever that is in your business. This will show you that, but it will show you how much busier. 5, 10, 100, whatever percent busier. 1,000 more board. A very, very popular report. What this one is good for is showing you what's happening now, but in a very simple, visually attractive display. So I'm currently showing you just 12 statistics. But you can go in, and you can change, and you can modify, and you can make those whichever statistics you want to select from. But you can also set alarms. So I can say, waiting now. If calls waiting now is higher than 0, I want you to flash, which is what it's doing. Likewise, I've done that, let's say, for longest waiting. And I can choose whether or not I want to have it display as a number or a dashboard instrument, which in many respects this is eye candy, but it can make it literally visually appealing to people on a screen. Also, I have to say, this is probably one of the most popular displays that people could have on their smartphone. So bear in mind, you can have a state-of-the-art telephony service that will, enables you to achieve all the things that Momentum service can. But by adding this, you can be anywhere, potentially anywhere in the world, and at any point you can see how efficiently things are happening, literally by clicking a shortcut on your smartphone or tablet or wherever. And that potentially means that wherever you are, you can see how effective that is. Very, very powerful. So that's the wallboard. Next report is the hunt group list or queues list. And we're now looking at the different queues. So if you've got multiple inbound queues, departments, this is a great one for showing you what the activity on each of those is. And again, you can set alarms. So we've got, if calls are coming in and they're higher than 0, we want you to flash to alert people to what's happening. And in this instance, we're also seeing how many agents are logged in or not into the different groups. So if there's not enough agents logged in, we can see that there. Now that often is what people prefer to see as a wallboard. And because we're highly configurable, we're browser-based, this is an example of people might say, well, look, I want to see that over there. What I can also do is over here, I would like to see that information. Or I could say that I want to see that there, but also what I'm going to do is configure this large screen so that I've got that displayed there, and below I'm going to see who is or isn't on the phone at the moment. So it's highly configurable that way.
Okay.
Just because you're using a browser.
Yeah, I think this is what I think they got 17 groups is what we were talking about, if I'm correct. Like 17 different inbounds. So this is probably, needs to be addressed the most.
Yeah, we've got about, in general, 30 devices. 10 of them are kind of handling inbound calls for the 17 call centers. And, so for us, what would be interesting is, so what I've seen so far is when are we busy? I'd be curious to know what happens when we're not. We work till 6 o'clock weekdays. What is we can get some stuff now, but it's not like this. And what's the activity outside of that? And then also when we are busy, being able to see what that activity looks like would be interesting. And one of the things we can't really do well right now is for those call centers, we don't have a good sense of calls over 4 minutes or over 2 minutes, for example. So we know the average, but we don't know.
Right.
It'd be interesting to see more information with that stuff.
Yeah. Again, you can slice and dice that in many ways. You could, for example, if you just have a list and say that I want to see all the calls that came in today that had a talk time higher than, like you said, 4 minutes or whatever. Or correspondingly, you could even have it in real time where you said, look, if a call's longer than whatever time, alert me to it.
Right.
On any of these. So, to be fair, the difficulty is at the moment, you only know some of the questions. But the very nature of having the information, you then become much more aware of what the next question becomes. It's like managing a business. The same sort of thing applies. So for hunt groups, another one is the ACD agent list. So if you have a situation where you're not necessarily just measuring how many calls in or out, you want to measure time on duty, time in different states like busy, not available, wrap up D&D and so forth. So you're measuring not just activity, but human activity. This report is particularly useful then, because then you can make sure that when the agents are coming in, they're literally assigned to groups and so forth. And managers can even reassign them to other groups and so forth from this screen here. And that manager can potentially be anywhere.
Okay.
You've got the ACD agent BLS. So if you've got, do any of your staff work remotely from home or anything like that?
No, not at the moment. Right now I've done it occasionally, but honestly it's just easier to use my cell phone.
Okay.
Now that's for agents. We pretty much, the system is here that they would interact with anyway, and we don't have them remote in and work. Okay. In the future,
it's something that it's something that is actually facilitated very easily with the whole voice over IP technology makes it very easy for an agent to be sort of sitting anywhere. And again, these then sort of screens make it a bit more useful for them to be able to see what's happening back in the office. The 2000 wallboard takes the previous wallboard and then adds those extra ACD statistics and so forth to it, so that not only are you seeing rating and so forth, but you see how many people are signed in, for example, that sort of thing. And the calls by account code is where, literally, this is the example where I say, we might get 1,000 calls a day, or 500 or whatever, but what we don't know is how many of them are sales, how many of them are complaints, how many of them are this type of call. And so what you can have during the call, the agent can punch in a code into the handset that refers to the different activities, and you can then measure it in real time or historically. And you can see, for example, are we doing a good job on the auto attendant on the website, etc. from there. Now, the other thing to think about is everything I've shown you so far have been very much reports, but this service can also be used to display border web pages. So I'm showing CNN. I can show company results that I've got here, or anything, let's say, that I've got accessible through a web page. Could be traffic information, could be weather information. Where is that hurricane on its way to or from at the moment? And you think, well, hang on, that's just a web page. What's so special about that? Well, let me show you. Because, for example, you might want to have this on display and saying, look, hang on, we're going to have that, so that everyone can see what's happening. I'll go into the 17 groups and so forth. But what we can also do is over here, we can have those other bits of information, but what I can also do is set up what we call transitioning. Now, transitioning means after I turn this on, what it will do is display a report and then go on to the next report or web page. So now it's not just a reporting service, it's a generic display service as well.
Talk about in terms, Aaron, of displaying this information for the call center area, like have a TV or a monitor, external monitor up.
Right.
And so the manager walking around at a glance can see what's going on, but also the employees can see what's going on real time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things one of our clients does is he has a wall board and he shows like how many calls somebody's answering, how many sales he gets, and so when you're at the bottom of that list and everybody's looking at just an agent list, and Joe's at the top answering 22 calls and Billy's down there with 6 calls, it's like, okay, Billy, how come you guys both started at 9 o'clock? How do you get 18 more calls answered? What are you doing? Why are you not picking up the phone? So there's a lot of tweaks you can do on the fly that just puts it right into an agent's face that holds them accountable.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would say, to be fair, that literally is the service, really. Give me your feedback. What do you think?
Well, what is the architecture of this? And maybe Matt, is that time for this call, or? So right now we have Cincinnati Bell in Ohio. Their hosted voice over IP system, and so we have some of their equipment in our building, their router and their switches, and we chose to put the give me a second, my computer's locking. So we chose to basically isolate their phones from our network because I really just didn't want to hear that it was something our servers were doing that was interfering with the phones. So I guess how does your system, how does the system all work? If I say I want to set this up starting tomorrow, what are the steps?
Ours is a cloud-based voice over IP system in which these numbers, in which the call reporting would be assigned across the voice over IP circuits as well. I believe Matt said that you owned the phones and that they were compatible to our services, so we would just have to reconfigure those services and then assign them.
Okay, so our phones would basically be, can they be behind a firewall?
We prefer it not. We prefer to bypass the firewall. You can put the data on the firewall, and we can bring a router in to do that.
Okay, so basically it'd be a very similar setup to what we have now.
Yes.
And then, so that would take care of the phones, and then if we go offline, what happens? It's hosted in a cloud somewhere, so all those numbers are going to your servers first, right?
We set up our servers to have a default automatically. You pick the location, whether you want that to go to someone's cell phones, whether you want to have a secondary office you want everything ringing to. But every line has if power goes out in the building, it can either go to a voicemail or it can be forwarded on the fly to cell phones, other offices.
Okay, and this same system has the voicemail and all that built in?
Yes, it has voicemail. If you want auto attendance, we can set up the auto attendance. I think right now with the discussions we had with Matt's team was 1,700 groups coming in, so it would be pointed in depending on which toll-free number it came into, but then all home run into I think two separate inbound groups.
Yeah,
and we were looking at a couple different options. We were looking at bringing in a T1 type voice circuit, or as that bandwidth, or a 3 meg circuit. But we're also looking at possibly doing a cable backup where you have two lines coming in, and then internally you can segment your traffic and say, all right, my voice traffic's going to go out this T1 circuit. All my data is going to go out a 10 meg internet circuit. But if that T1 fails, but the cable's still up, I can just call up Momentum and say, hey, we're gonna terminate everything over this cable line, and they'll do it on the fly, and you just plug that in as a primary voice and data at that point. You follow that?
Yeah.
So we're looking at potentially, depending on what you want to do, looking at having some redundant options, because generally what happens is the cable's coming in on the pole, but your telco is buried in the ground. It might be on the pole as well in your building, isn't it?
It's both on the pole here, and actually that's the two major hiccups we've had were related to someone driving into the pole and somebody having a dump truck with the lid up pulled and ripped the cables out.
Okay.
So I don't know how to get around that, but.
Well, you got to have those shear spikes and a tool belt, and you got to be able to shimmy up the sucker yourself.
Yeah. They, well, in the first time that happened, everything was within our building, so we were everything just kind of, seemed like we were out of business. And then the other time we were able to control a little bit. At least things would go directly to voicemail.
Do you have cable in there now?
No.
Okay.
The TV stuff you've seen, those are on dish, but we, I think Time Warner is in the area. I just, we haven't explored that. Generally, how we do so like my phone, mine's just an office phone. I'm not part of the call centers or anything like that. Then the 8 to 10 people who are part of people that answer calls. So for those 17,800 lines that forward to a local DAD here, that'll, it's important for us to know who they called. So that 800 number that you're calling may be Catholic Digest. So on the phone it displays Catholic Digest, and they can answer the phone appropriately. The next call may be National Geographic, so that when they answer the call, for that call, if you dial that 800 number, it comes in, that DID, and it'll say, you can answer it National Geo. The other thing of what we do now, I don't know if this is the best way to do it, we kind of evolved to this, and right now, all 10 of those phones ring at the same time. Whoever picks it up first takes the call. We initially it was just kind of it may have been more of a configuration problem. It's been several years since we really messed with it. What we were doing, if people were logging in and out of call centers, it was doing funky things with the call centers, and or the agents were logging in and out. It was some of the call centers were basically saying, okay, no one's available, go directly to voicemail. And for the most part, we try and answer calls live. There are a few occasions that doesn't happen, or they're too busy. But yeah, basically it's someone calls one of the inbound numbers, whoever's available picks it up, another call comes in, same thing happens, and there's no good. The distribution kind of happens on its own. We haven't tried to manipulate that. Whereas I get one, Matt gets the next, and so on. Does that make sense?
Now you also can get call center queues, and so it'll automatically put people on hold. It'll give them a time, the average wait time. Reverting from the call reporting, the average wait time is this many seconds. Please hold. So we can also put a call center queue in there as well, so that people aren't going to a voicemail. They're actually waiting for a live person to open up, and then you put up the hunt groups would then search for the next first available person. Because that way, if somebody's getting off a call, they wouldn't be able to pick up that call. But then if it got off the call, it would automatically just ring to their desk.
Yeah, I'd have to go look at it. Like I said, it's been a little while, but on the phone displays, they can see that other calls are ringing in, and until somebody picks it up, it'll stay on the display, and then after 25 seconds, it goes to voicemail. I don't know. I mean, I would need to talk to. We started with the queue thing, and we went away from it. I don't remember the exact reasons. I don't know if our customers didn't like it. 'Cause we're answering calls on behalf of our customers, so when their customers are calling us, I think we arrived at they would prefer us to get the message, call them back within a few hours. But again, I don't know. I'd have to get some clarification on that. And if it's possible to, do, most of them the same way we do it now, and turn the queue on for one or two and see how that works. And then, transition, if we like that, switch them over. I don't, one of my questions is kind of what, of all the stuff you showed me, is that all part of a basic package, or is everything a la carte?
Yeah, everything here we showed you is based of our call center pro. So all the reporting is our base features, and then there's a step above the 2000, which has some extra features, but everything he showed you is our basic 1000 package.
Okay.
And I think what I was hearing from pretty much from Bart and Frank, Aaron, is that they can design it any way you want, based on what you were just stating. They can do whatever you want them to do. It's just going to depend on how you want the calls handled and then how they set up those queues. But I think the advantage of having the queues, wasn't that also giving the name of the 800 as it rings in? Frank?
Oh, yeah, that would automatically just come in under naming that hunt group. So since we have 17 numbers, we have 17 hunt groups. Each hunt group.
You can have the hunt groups all ring the same or change how they ring based on what your needs are, Aaron.
Yeah, the caller ID at the receptionist desk or whatever desk is picking up would actually show you which toll-free number is coming in or what that name of that group is. So if it's this magazine, that magazine, it would actually have that name of this customer is calling in for this off this number, this product.
Okay.
You can do it next available or have them all ring. It's up to you.
Yeah, but one of the things Bart sometimes touches on is actually you were asking about what times you're slow, what times you're high. You can actually go into the half-hour increments, and so you can go into that unreturned call list, go into your slow times, and that way you can set up the return all those calls. And if they're in red, that means they haven't gotten through. So you can return all the calls at any time during your downtime. And then as soon as you call them, it turns green. So then your board shows that you've reached out to them and what agent reached out to them and were they able to get them and forward them.
Okay. So the call dispositioning, those codes, do those show up on the screen, or is that something we would just communicate with the agents? Is that like a soft key? You had showed like 6999 as, completed a sale, or they?
Oh.
You enter that in through the handset of the telephone.
Okay. So that could be an optional thing if we had a specific issue with that kind of came out where shipments all went out without missing a thing. We could add that in if somebody calls about missing this piece, just type in 444 and we can get an idea of how many are.
That's a really good example.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a really good example. Absolutely.
And then you can, I assume it can do like business hour rules where if it's after hours, you can say just go straight to voicemail, or each call center can have its own schedule.
Yeah, you can set the calls out at after hours time, whether it's 5 o'clock, it cuts off, 6 o'clock, you can cut off and go directly to voicemail or to an auto attendant extension, which would then give them a menu if they want to reach a direct person or if they want to, call a group, however you want to set that up.
The other thing, which we don't have right now, but we probably need to get in the near future, is a way to handle Spanish-speaking calls. Whereas, how does that? Do you have an option for that? Where if we had one or two operators that can speak Spanish, they can hit. I don't know how we do that if
you're answering a live caller, then that would just be a transfer.
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking out loud because again, there are things that with the platform we have right now, it's not
ACD. You can take those calls into an ACD first, and then say press 1 if you want Spanish, press 2. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you can send it down the queue and then reroute it appropriately.
So that's again, our current platform. There are things that are hard to change that we just haven't. Frankly, we've probably just avoided messing with. We kind of have a way that things more or less work, and but this looks like it's pretty straightforward or powerful in terms of being able to change options ourselves even. I guess is that the case?
Yeah, you can have the case if a lot of people just go in, they'll just start making their own reports, and it's kind of like if you use Salesforce or something like a CRM tool, you go in there and you see what's working, what's not working. One of the silly things one of our clients had, their biggest concern was people inside the call center talking to themselves. And so since we had the cradle to grave, we were actually able to see which agents were sitting there talking internally versus talking externally. So they can say Bob and Joe are sitting there talking about fantasy football, not answering any customers. So they're able to flag it by them being in the red because they weren't talking externally, but their desk was busy.
What about?
Aaron, keep going. I have to drop. I'll probably call you later.
Okay.
Thanks.
The other question I have is with the, like, do you have a way for us to read the system at all? Like, if we wanted to read the incoming phone number and like a TAPI interface, what number is calling in? What number they're calling? What the calling in number is? So we.
Well, their inbound number would come in on. Yeah, their number would. Are you talking
not,
about
not
just their?
Just on the phone, but if we wanted to write hooks into that we could tie it into our system.
Well, yeah, that historic call list is in real time.
Well, if we do this for a customer where we use the TAPI interface where they have an inbound call, we look up the number in the system and the customer database, pull up that customer, show some other order information about it. Can we do not through the web, but through web service?
Yeah,
or any other?
I've got about 1,000 customers that use ACT that do that, where the ACT integration is CRM based, and we've got a couple clients that have both services. They're both cloud services, but they do run independent of each other.
So if we wanted to talk to the back end of your system, basically, to get that info, is that something that that's available, or?
Yes. However, every agent would have to have their own 10-digit number assigned to them in order to be able to pull all that information up. They wouldn't have to be able to be on an extension seat. They would have to have a full 10-digit DID.
Okay, and currently they do.
Okay, that's one of the things I didn't, when I was talking to Matt, because the question is how many people need their own extension in order to integrate with a CRM like an ACT or Salesforce. They need that full 10-digit number at their desk in order to pull all that historic information up.
Okay. Okay. I think that's I think that's general. I mean, I have a pretty good idea of what, at least, from what you guys showed of how our things would translate into this.
So if you ever have a chance of you want to hold contests, you want to hold the stats, you just put the wall board up there. The people can see who's winning on the fly. The good thing about this is in real time. I was dealing with a customer with a $300,000 call center appearance, and they had to wait 30 minutes to get the most recent report was 30 minutes late. 30 minutes is a long time in the business world.
So these screens, so there's 25 tabs on the bottom. Are there the agents? Do they have their own? Can they log in and view things, or?
Currently, generally supervisors can dictate what happens. And Bart, if you want to say what the agents can or cannot see.
Yeah, I don't know what the use for that would be. I was just trying to think of anything else.
Typically, you'd have something like this. If all the agents are sitting together, you'd have what you want them to see up on a plasma screen or something, literally like that sort of example. If you want, the agents can have the agent BLF to be able to see which other colleagues, on their own desktop, and to use this to be able to log in and out and stuff like that. But it depends what's important to them. If what's important to them is showing this information, then typically that's done on a plasma screen. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, that's what typically happens.
And that way, if you are using that integration with an ACT or a CRM, you're not needing a split screen to see their like call orders. I've got a tool company, and anytime somebody calls in, the first thing it does, it pulls up all that, everything what their last purchase was, when it was shipped out, when it was received, what they typically buy. So the agent picks up, he knows exactly has a good idea of what they're needing, as he's picking up the phone, and can talk, more personal to him because he knows, hey, John, this is Bo, how you doing? And just gives him the full camaraderie speech, so to speak. But then the boss can peek in, listen in on, your directors can go in, ghost into that call if needed, train. You can have the hidden call where you can be talking to your agent, but the customer can't hear it. Hey, offer them this. They can take the calls. So the ability to train on the spot is there as well with our services, with the call center services. And if you need, we also have a call recording option. Did we lose everybody?
No, I'm sorry. I was talking. I was on. So I was acknowledging a lot of what you were saying. I just had you on mute because somebody came in asking if I was done. It seems to be a fit. I guess the pricing is a question. I assume that I'll work with Matt on that. Is that?
Yeah.
And then, so this would replace. So right now we get through Cincinnati Bell. They provide our T1s. And the phone service, long distance, all of that. That, aside from the internet service, you'll provide everything else?
We can provide the internet service too, and provide QoS on top of it. So if something does go wrong, we know exactly where, what the issue is to fix it.
So
But we don't require you use our internet. So if you currently have Cincinnati Bell and you're under contract for like a piece of fiber, well then you don't have to break your contract in order to use our phone service.
So what do you go? So AT&T is actually our local. We don't have fiber to our building. I wish we did.
Okay.
AT&T is basically they provide. They're providing the service, but it's really it's being built through Cincinnati Bell. So whenever we have an issue, it's really getting AT&T involved. But our issue is historically, I can go in the back and see that all of the lights are off on the.
The gears, the red light's blinking, nothing's going through. When we talk to Matt,
they'll be dead, and I got to go through a phone tree of that I'm trying to talk to our reps, and that's really frustrating to be honest. I can't take that. So Matt's always provided he's got someone who works for him who provides a great layer of getting through the bullshit of go to start, select, menu, all that stuff. I can tell you it's dead.
What we discussed earlier was what Josh was kind of explaining. We had another client, similar situation. So what we did was we gave them a T1 on the voice as the default. We gave them a cable solution for their internet. We gave them a dual WAN router, in which they're both separated. But if one went out, you recognizes, you call in, we flick everything over to the circuit that's live.
Okay. And Aaron, you could always still call me, and I could take care of that for you as well.
Okay. Oh, Josh, I didn't even know you were on here. So so in that case, so we have 5, 6, 7 IP addresses where we're hosting some web servers, basically. So that would all still work and everything. Okay.
Yeah, usually as long as I know IP. T1 comes with 8 IPs, so as long as you needed 8, I can give you 8, no issues. And then if you need additionals on the cable, we could get 8 on the cable.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah. Josh, you're pretty familiar with kind of what we're doing. Is there anything that we would significantly change in terms of would we lose anything that you're aware of by switching to something like this?
No, you're going to gain more reporting. Obviously, that's something that if that's something you guys can utilize, could go a long way for you.
Yeah, I mean, because that's funny you're saying, because I show that fiber is available for your building as well.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have
I quoted out 10 meg on fiber and came back, and I got a price back on it.
So is that generally more cost effective?
Well, fiber is more. No, it's costs more, but it's more secure. I mean, it doesn't go out basically.
Would that be a loop?
It depends on how they bring it into your building. They would bring in probably a single leg. They probably wouldn't bring in diverse entries. They would bring a leg, but fiber is geo-redundant in its path, so the path goes in both directions. So as long as it was off something off the pole on the right side and the left side was still on the loop, then you wouldn't lose your internet.
Yeah. Well, I know last time we went through this exercise a couple of years ago, or I don't even know how long ago, it wasn't available. So if it is, I guess we'll talk with Josh and Matt, see what they I'll rely on their expertise.
Okay.
And then we'll see what the costs are.
May I ask who's fiber?
I'd have to pull it because when we send a request out, it doesn't tell us who it is until I go back and I'd have to go into the system, our MasterStream system, and see who is bringing it in.
Okay.
I would guess CenturyLink maybe. I don't know if CenturyLink is in there. Because that's one of our. We use CenturyLink, we use AT&T, we use if it's a Time Warner, it could be Time Warner Fiber.
Time Warner Cable. Yeah.
Yeah, if they're offering a fiber solution. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. Barn, am I hijacking your link?
No. I mean, the only thing I would say is, do you want me to still continue recording?
No, because I think right now we're just talking about the internet and stuff.
So, shall I turn it off or not? The recording?
Yeah, go ahead. You can turn it off.
Yeah. Okay. Otherwise, it's going to be really, really boring for you guys if you